Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know, today we will be talking about ethics at www.evan.wiki production. Today we'll be talking about an overview of ethics, a definition of ethics, resources for ethics statement, ethics versus law and regulations, types of ethics, and enforcement. So here's the overview. It is almost impossible to follow the law, as there are over 4,000 laws and over 80,000 federal rules and regulations. From jaywalking to eating fried chicken with a fork, how is one to really keep up on all the laws in all the locations? To me, that is too many laws and rules, so what about ethics? Ethics boils down to several categories in which the question should be asked: are you acting ethically? What do you know and why did you do it? And if you knew that you were doing the wrong thing, was that acting ethically? No. And what should be the punishment? To help decide if one is acting ethically, there are known standards like a speed limit and listening to potential warning signs or the study of history and law. If you are doing something that is wrong and don't know it's wrong, it's usually one of the lesser laws or like a misdemeanor or something like that. If you know that it's wrong, it's usually a very severe situation like shooting someone or killing someone or doing something that you're really not supposed to be doing, like stealing money. People know those things are wrong because they hear about them in society. And so ethics is asking the question, are you acting ethically? So the definition of ethics is what people ought to do or which behavior is morally right. And sometimes that depends on what they know. Like juveniles may not know that if they're starving, they're supposed to ask the grocery store, can I get a free apple? When they would, or a free berry, or a free expired milk. That young people might not know that, and they might just go to the store and steal whatever they want or whatever they can get because they don't know what they're supposed to morally do in the case of being bankrupt or not having any money or trying to survive by doing all the right things just to survive. They don't know that they're supposed to be not driving around, that they're supposed to be walking, that they're supposed to be riding a bike, that they're supposed to be doing things to help society, and they don't know what those things are to help society, which if they knew, they might participate in, and then they could go to the store and say, oh, I'm doing all these good things. Can I get a job? No, you can't get a job. Well, then can I get some free produce? Yes. Produce made in the USA. So a resources statement. How do we uphold ethics? Well, it would be nice to have enough police, small courts, and lawyers to act whenever or wherever ethics falter. It would also be nice for those in power to realize people make mistakes and reward pleading guilty with a lesser conviction and have warnings or reduced penalties for the first occurrences, depending. And when I say depending, I mean, obviously, if you go out and do something like you go buy an AR-44 and you an assault rifle and you go shoot a bunch of people, well, that's kind of known to be not a good thing that you're not supposed to be doing. So maybe we'll sentence you to 20 years plus, and they could say it's 25 years instead of 50 years. However, if the punishment's the same for 25 and 50, that's depending. Reduced penalties are depending. Ethics versus law and regulations. If ethics were the rule, rather than someone stealing from a store, that someone would admit their situation and would receive help accordingly. In exchange for work or ethics, trying to work help services could be offered. So if you're trying to work, if you're trying to help in society, then we'll offer you services. If you're not, then maybe you're not. acting ethically. In the cases of unethical behavior, I believe these penalties should grow exponentially. If mistakes are repeated, as a repeat shows more intent, especially since penalties and wrongdoings are known for repeat offenders, which shows poor ethics. So, like armed robbery, the first time you get in, you steal something, but you've got a weapon. Maybe they put you away for 10 years, and if you actually do it again, when you get back, maybe it's 50 years. Depending on the weapon, depending on how aggressive the person is. A lot of stores have cameras and stuff, so you can actually see and get a good idea of the truth of what's going on. And convicted people can be convicted quite easily. Types of ethics. Well, a society built on ethics rather than rules, laws, and regulations. Is it possible? Well, we'll look into financial ethics, waste and littering ethics, safety ethics, physical injury ethics, respect ethics, fraud ethics, and enforcement. We'll look into what these ethics are and how they're different from rules, laws, and regulations. All right, financial ethics. Financial ethics, well, they have a lot of rules and laws about, you have a daycare. You can only have 5 kids per nanny. They have rules like, you're renting an area. Well, we can't help you if they don't pay their rent, or we can't help you if something occurs in the interaction where they're doing things like they're renting a location but they're not following the rules, or they break something. Well, there should be an agreement to pay in exchange for services like daycare, renting a location, or building a website. Transparency, not restrictions as to number of kids, rented living area, and website content and agreement. So if you're going to have a daycare with 5 and only have 5 kids, let them know. Maybe you can charge more versus the daycare where they have 10 kids. However, be transparent about the number of kids and let the free market decide whether or not your daycare succeeds or does not succeed. Don't write regulations saying, no, everybody can only have daycare with 5 kids, because then the costs skyrocket. All right. Transparency as to what goes on and when police need to be involved as to no missed or late payments. Yeah. If someone is not paying their rent and they're living in your place, there needs to be a time after 3 months where you go to small court, and that small court, if they don't show up, then the police can come and escort them out of your property. There needs to be rules and law. There needs to be ethics. In the renting a location and daycare and things that are important to people, so that we don't have to make it a rule or a law. Penalty for not fulfilling an agreement or not being ethical. So ethics can be kind of vague. What someone ought to do. Well, someone ought to fulfill an agreement, and not being ethical, not fulfilling that agreement, then they should have to pay a fee, a late fee, or they should have to be kicked out. And it should be written down in the agreement that after 6 months or 3 months, 3 months is small courts, and 6 months you're out of there. And if you do damage and take things, then you gotta work it off. All right, police courts to get involved during a dispute. So there's also financial ethics, not just in daycares and renting a location, but there's movies and pornography. This is kind of a tight subject to some people. We don't want girl slaves. We want them to work and create a service. Maybe they're acting a slave or something like that. But we want race to the bottom protections like minimum payments, profit sharing. We don't want them to be abused in a way that they can never recover from. And if they are doing things, there needs to be minimum payments and profit sharing. Um, I'm not exactly sure what these race to the bottom protections are, but there could be a minimum wage. But if they're only doing it for like a couple hours or a couple days or something like that, then it's kind of hard because they're going to make a lot more on the movie than they're paying because they're only paying by the hour. And if the minimum wage is $15 an hour and the pornography is 2 hours, which would be really long for pornography, well, that's not enough. So we need race to the bottom protections for that. Camera and visual verification, like you're making a movie. That's how it gets legal. Written verbal agreements between those involved. Written agreement through an institution and or third party cases in some cases. That way, they know what they're getting into and they're protected. All right. Financial ethics, corporate investing and ethics. This is behind insider trading and what people can say and cannot say. Business. That's next. Business people trading financial ethics. Trading on sentiment, feeling, or partial knowledge is allowed. So if you know something, but you don't know the whole truth, you should still be allowed to trade. Maybe you figured it out. Maybe you're smart. Or maybe you're just trading on sentiment or feeling. I feel like the business is doing good. I'm working here. I feel like this stuff is up. You should be able to buy on that. Executives should post buy sells as well as compensation for proxy investors. Known public windows where executives can and cannot trade besides expiring options. Well, if it is an expiring option, it's going to force a trade. So, and preparing financial results by limiting when traders can. By limiting when trades can be made by insiders, illegal trading becomes irrelevant. So if you're limiting, they can only trade in November, they can only trade in January, because they're not around the financial number release, then illegal trading basically becomes irrelevant. So political people trading financial ethics. State representative candidates or higher should have tax returns public if possible. I believe there should be no insider trading for politicians as there are checks and balances in government and the ability to not re-elect to prevent unwanted actions. If a politician is doing something you don't like, vote them out. It's not insider trading that the market went up and they made money. The public can also ask questions about where investments are and what investments are being made to decide about a candidate outside of regular yearly tax return information. And there's no need for the candidate to report assets worth less than $1,500 or campaigns $1,500 less. If they want to report that, they can. However, they do not have to. That's my idea of ethics. Political people reporting financial ethics. Well, they should have, and they do have, a place in Oregon, ORSTAR, elections reporting, where you can report your transactions. They should be able to have someone from the government who can help candidates fulfill this information out. It should be an easy process for reporting transactions and available help through government specialists. Businesses should be this similar to politicians. They have their own bank account. They report these transactions and they can get the business tax instead of the individual tax rate. And the government should be able to help them with this reporting. Doesn't have to be private party and paid for because you're paying taxes on the business. So if you're paying taxes, the government should help you so that you can pay those taxes and pay them correctly. Waste and littering ethics. Chemical waste and littering. Appropriate handling of chemical waste procedures to be known. That's something we should study. in school and business, they should tell you those things. And they do in business sometimes, but they don't always in school. Resources to properly dispose of different waste at every home residence. So resources on how to both online flyer and disposal basket tub can. So like your can your garbage can should tell you how to dispose of things right on the can. There should also be a flyer on how to do it and an online website on how to do it. And same with the basket and tub, so that you can dispose of glass, electronics, metal, um, tin cans, plastic bottles, so they can all be separated for the garbage man to come by the home and pick it up. And fees for improper disposal and a discount on services when done properly. Very important to recycle. So chemical waste and littering, pay a fine or be brought to jail if you are littering, which is an obvious intentional act of throwing something out the window. Oh, I don't care. I'm driving by. I don't care. I'm just going to throw it out and litter instead of waiting for a garbage can. Detainment means missed work and missed pay. So littering, improper disposal fines to go toward cleaning the communities. Camera visual verification of intention. Littering may be called in for reward. So if you see someone and it's on camera, you can call it in for a reward. Visual verification and intentional litter may be reported by police or authorized taxi drivers, including Lyft, Uber, and other taxi services with camera and license plate verification. So we're not putting eyes on every stop sign. We're not putting eyes from the space telescope. We're putting eyes on taxis so that they can make a little bit of extra money, and they have maybe a camera on their vehicle and it can get the license plate and that information. They can't necessarily prosecute the taxis, however, they can warn, and they can get you in trouble for things like littering, although not poor driving, but poor driving will send you a message. So safety ethics, sharing work and resources as well as those in need of assistance, eating the leftovers. So people on food benefits are eating better than those not. So we need to make sure that people on food benefits are only eating made in USA food, and looking out for people's ability to earn extra money at work for being safe, like how one might be paid more for seniority. Alrighty. Elections for sheriff and AI in society. Sheriff may run on ride-along or not ride-along police platform. And then drivers have eyes. From advanced equipment, Lyft, Uber, and taxi drivers record and notify drivers of poor behavior, getting license plates information, however, not generally enforcing the law. So they're sending warnings, and then if a police pulls them over later, or if they get like 10, 15 warnings, then they might get a fee, but they'll have the warnings. But then it's a warning system. It's more eyes on the road, letting the taxi drivers notify drivers of poor behavior. All right, and then we'll continue on. Physical ethics. So ways to get health care when one does not have or cannot afford health care. Youth 19 or younger. At 16, payments for not driving begin. Well, you can drive at 16. So 4 years at $500 a month is $24,000. This is the program I'd like to implement. Lost children. Those without physical insurance as a kid will automatically have health insurance provided until 16. Monies will be deducted from Social Security with any less than 4 years of no driving service. So lost children, it just comes out of Social Security unless they do what they're supposed to do, which is 4 years of service, which is recommended. And then the debt for the health insurance up to 16 will be paid. It's not your fault if your parents can't work, if your parents are lazy. You can only do so much. So we got to be able to get those kids who are innocent health insurance. Gambling on no health care may result in Needing to pay for uncovered services. Costs of various services should be provided through health service providers transparently. So you should know the cost wherever you go, because the government's paying half of it in my world, and the other half you have to pay, or you have to have health insurance. So those costs should be transparent so that you can budget for the costs, so that you know what the costs are if you do not have health insurance, and because you're shopping around because you're not getting 100% free healthcare. So they should be transparent costs. If services cannot be afforded and one doesn't have healthcare, they are going to have to resort to healthcare outside a hospital, self-care. If the reason for not having healthcare is that a job cannot be found, as long as one is attempting to work and or get qualified for work, healthcare can be paid through not driving program at a discount. Respect ethics. Confession and truth, respect, confession of non-illegal acts, acceptance and potential. That's who they are. Try to accommodate them. Confession of illegal acts, reduced penalty compared to being caught. Freedom of religion, trial and training to be difficult stage in employment induction. Rewarding after trial periods with 2 4s, understanding management and what they're for, to how to advance the corporate ladder. Fraud ethics. Preserving the right to say anything, including incorrect advice or statements leaving fact-checking up to the public. That's free speech. Realizing that having the truth left out allows for individual realization. Sometimes someone leaves out the truth and you got to fill it in. So that's also why free speech is important. We're just naturally teachers sometimes. Realizing that incorrect statements may be due to lack of understanding, and that is okay. Lying on a resume could eventually result in being fired or negative recommendations, or confirmed through competency tests. You know, if someone's going to spend a bunch of money on an employee, maybe they should do their research on that employee and make sure they're on target. A Ponzi scheme, we all know about that. Taking money and using it for what it's not intended for, that is fraudulent. It may result in severe sentences. Enforcement. Expanding areas of patrol. More police patrol and lookouts mean safer driving and lower insurance. To reduce police costs and increase total patrol, use labeled taxi vehicles with cameras to record reckless driving behavior and capture license plates. Information linked to license plate then may send a report to driver about reckless driving, usually without ticketing unless actual police vehicle. So you're getting warnings, you know you're driving unsafely, you need to stop, and that's a good system. Police enforcement. Police are hired to respond to 911 situations and private security camera situations deemed dangerous or emergencies. They're also supposed to uphold the law and contracts, like I talked about in finance ethics. Police should patrol in a way where they are able to respond to emergencies quickly. Alrighty. So what should be illegal and I vote against? Well, I'll tell you what I vote against. No on cannibalism. And if you are a cannibal, minimum penalty 5 days starvation. We don't want to kill you, but 5 days starvation. For eating someone else, you eat them, you starve. Anyway, plus time potentially sentenced to death. I am against cannibalism. Do not eat your fellow friend. This is a www.evan.wiki production, and I will talk to you later, and see ya.